questions are. So very quickly, for anyone that hasn't joined us before and doesn't know what Brass Bands England is, so we're hosting tonight's session, and we're the Arts Council Sector Support Organisation. So that means we're funded through the Arts Council to support the whole of the brass band sector, and basically anything that we can do to help make banding better is what we aim to do. We've got about 400 members made up of bands, events, associations, traders, and we're funded by, I've said we're funded by Arts Council England, and there's a sort of real high level of our kind of work, ranging from advocacy to discounts for members. So if you'd like to find out more, please visit our website at bbe.org.uk. And finally, before I hand over, we're currently running what's turning out to be one of the biggest surveys ever undertaken about brass banding, and this brass band contesting, sorry. And we really want to know what you, the brass band community, think about different elements of contesting. We started this process off in January, where we asked people to send the questions that they thought people should be being asked, which we've put together into an 8-part survey. So if you want to find the first survey that you can on that page there, or if you follow the link that I'm about to paste into the chat, you'll be able to go straight to our page that's got all of the different weeks. So we've launched part 3 at the moment, but you can complete parts 1 and 2 as well. So there's a link in the chat there now for you. And we've had over 1,000 people take part in that now, which is great. So tonight we've got the brilliant Roger Webster joining us for a session on performance anxiety and mental well-being. So I think we'll go straight into that, and I'll introduce Roger now, who I think is waiting in the wings, and I'll hand over to Roger. Hi, Roger.
Hi there, Alex. How are you doing? You all well?
Yeah, good, thank you. How are you?
Great, thanks. Yes, all good. Nice sunny day.
Great. I'll let you take it away.
Fantastic. Cheers. Good evening, everyone. I see we've got lots of people there and lots of interesting questions that Alex has already supplied me with. I won't go straight to the questions, but we will come back to them shortly. What I will do is I'll work through quite a brief PowerPoint presentation, and then I'll get the right one. There you go. And we'll talk about it as we go through. It's all there's nothing terribly mysterious or anything about this. Looking at the questions people just have been asking, you know, how can we stop worrying about things? How can we not be nervous? There's nothing unusual about it. So what we'll do, I'll work through these slides and we'll talk about it as we go on. This is always a start to any chat I do. It was on the last one. John Sloboda, quite an eminent psychologist. There appears to be no better predictor of achievement level than the amount of formal practice undertaken. Now that goes for anything, including developing coping mechanisms or techniques for performance anxiety, or as we're going to label it, performance excitement. I think it's a very fine line, and that was one of the questions, but we will come on to that. So yeah, whether it's actual practice of your instrument, the technical side, the musical side, or it's dealing with what I class as the final hurdle in technique, which is being able to perform what you've practiced in private, in public, you've got to practice that. So predictor of achievement level is the amount of formal practice, and in this case it's practicing not being nervous or coping with the excitement, the anxiety, and not letting it get out of control. Yeah, we've talked about that before. It's only the proper practice. No good someone saying to you, well, just get out there and do it. You'll be right. The more times you do it, the better it gets. That's not been my experience, and any research that I've either undertaken myself or looked at. It's certainly not the answer. Practice does make permanent. So if you're permanently going out there and having negative experiences, you will continue to have negative experiences. It'll just ingrain it in you. Someone, Pamela Green, if you're out there, you did mention should bands be provided with psychoeducation about anxiety. its function and roots, and how the amygdala plays a role? I don't think so, really. To be honest, yes, they should have some sort of regular training. I think if we start getting into the nitty-gritty of the limbic system, and the hippocampus, etc., we can get bogged down. But I do know where you're coming from. Perhaps this is a conversation for another time. Yeah, performance anxiety or performance excitement. I love the label performance excitement. Anxiety to me always means worry or something that you're not comfortable with. Yeah, we may feel uncomfortable, but if we dig deep, we want to do this. We want to be in that situation. We want to go and perform. We want to go to competitions. We want to play solos. We want to stand in front of others. So realistically speaking, there shouldn't be anxiety about it. It should be some form of excitement that we need to be able to control. So what is it? What is performance excitement, performance anxiety? I guess in its simplest form, it's a fear of failure. It's a fear of embarrassment. It's a fear of letting friends down. It's being afraid to share what you've practiced in private and what you really do want to share with people. And it's a fear of going out there and it not being as enjoyable to other people as it is to you. At its most basic. Sometimes it's a fear of losing your job. If you're going and you're playing for a living, there's lots of reasons. But the first thing I would say in any situation, identify your trigger, not just the place, because that's not a trigger really. It's your internal perception of that situation. So you can't say, oh, that certain hall, St. George's Hall or the Royal Albert Hall, you can't say that they make me nervous, because as a building, they don't make you nervous. You could go in there when it was empty. You could go in there when there's another concert and you'd be excited. You'd be happy to be there. You're actually processing it mentally, internally, in a different way and seeing it as a threatening situation for whatever reason. You're seeing it you're processing it as a threatening situation and your body's reacting accordingly. Who is affected? Everyone, absolutely everyone. The people that say, nope, not a jot of nerves, just go out there and it doesn't bother me at all, they're either dead internally, extremely strange, because you should feel something. You should feel something. I say now with certainty that I don't get nervous when I go and play, even at my age. Used to do many years ago. And that started my sort of path into psychology. Used to definitely feel something and didn't always deliver what I wanted to deliver. And that can still happen anyway, but not for those reasons. But I wanted to make sure that when I could go out there, I wanted to deliver whatever I could do in private, whatever level that was at, I wanted to be able to share that with other people. And I think that's the aim for everyone that's questioning performance excitement, performance anxiety. So the answer is everyone is affected in some way or another. We touched on this in the description of performance anxiety, performance excitement. What are its causes? Its processing causes are, they're numerous. It can be fear of failure, fear of embarrassment. I've not practiced, so I'm going to make a fool of myself. I'm going to let people down. I've been telling people I'm fantastic at this. Now they're going to hear me and I'm going to be embarrassed because I actually can't play any of this. I don't want to let my friends down in the band. Oh, if I don't play really well, we could get relegated in this competition. There are thousands of reasons. This is a very simple one, and one I'm sure you'll all be really, really familiar with. Symptoms: fast racing heart, dry mouth, shaking legs, blood taken away from places like your face, where you need strength in muscles. Even though you get sweaty palms, the blood's taken away from your fingers, so they're not as good. Your brain goes into meltdown. So it's like looking sideways through a train window when you're trying to read your music or concentrate. Focus and attention just go out the window. It's like when you've had a terrible shock over something and someone's talking to you and you're not taking it all in. That can be one of the main symptoms. For those of you that have been in brass band contests, I'm sure you'll agree that one of the symptoms is Psychologically, we call it increased toiletry function. It basically means butterflies in the stomach. It makes you want to go to the restrooms a little bit more than you would normally do. So anybody that's been to a brass band contest, the toilets are places to avoid. They're like war zones. And that's just one of the symptoms of nerves. Can we control it? Control's a strange word. I don't like the word control, even though I put that on there. I think we can manage. I think we can manage it and enjoy it. I think we can use all of these symptoms, all of this heightened awareness, this extra adrenaline, as long as it's not out of control. We can use all of this to our advantage and turn what could be a disastrous spiral and downhill performance into something very stable, very focused. It won't make you better, controlling it. It won't make you a better player than you are. What it will do is it will allow you to take your private, practiced performance out on stage and share it publicly. And that's all we can hope to do. Can we enjoy it? Absolutely. Absolutely, 100%. There's nothing I enjoy better than being on stage and actually playing. The rehearsals, they weren't always my favorite place. I think for some conductors, me being there wasn't always their favorite time either. I get bored very easily. But when I got on a contest stage and the conductors didn't sort of stop you and, oh, can you not do that? Can you do this, and stopping for other players? You could just go on there and do what you've been working towards, share that private performance with the public. And whether they liked it or not, as long as you were judging yourself against what you could do, did you do what you could do, what you were capable of? Did you achieve your full potential, whatever level that is? And if the answer comes out at yes or near enough yes, then job done. If it comes out at no, or something happened, or I didn't breathe, or the trombone player put me off because he's dropped his mute, a million excuses, no, we failed, and we need to address that. When should we think about it? Well, all the time. Not the anxiety or even the excitement, but about the control mechanisms. You should be able to go through areas in your mind where you're thinking, right, what will I feel like on stage when it comes to this solo or this passage I've got with the euphonium or the trombones, whoever you are? You should be able to then visualize that and think, right, I'm in the banjo, I need a big breath. I'm going to mic it on because my breathing might be a little bit more shallow at that point. So I'm going to definitely alter my breathing. And if you can do this sort of thing on a regular basis, and I'm not talking every rehearsal, but I'm talking about fortnightly, even once every 3 weeks or so, really visualize when you're in the band room, think about what you will feel like on stage. And then when you are on stage, you can do the reverse of that and think, right, in the band room, feet planted, mute in front of me, good vision with the conductor, good breath at this point, a couple of breathing exercises. And we should be thinking about it all the time. It's no use just waiting to the rehearsal before you go on the contest, or in some of my students' cases, giving you a call the week of exams and saying, all right, I'm feeling a bit nervous. What can I do? And if it's the day before or the day of, then without being really silly and just saying, well, you better get on your knees and pray, you can just do a couple of breathing exercises, but you should be thinking about it all the time, preparing as you would any other technical or musical element of your performance. I'll not stay on this one too long because it's a bit extreme for what we're talking about. CBT or CIT, which is just a version of CBT, it says there, it's a psychotherapeutic approach to assist in promoting positive change. It basically looks at negative thoughts, unhelpful thoughts, and changes them into positive or more realistic thoughts. So, for instance, if you were going on stage and you've been practicing your part and it's all been going really well, then you get on stage and the little voice is saying, you're going to mess up, you're going to miss that note, you're going to be a fool, blah, blah, blah. It's an unrealistic thought. So through CBT, or even just talking with people, like-minded people, sharing ideas, you can go through an approach to really look at those ideas, the unhelpful thoughts, and replace them with positive, and more realistic thoughts. Actually, thinking about it, no, I'm not going to miss that note, because the last 20 run through with band, I've missed it once. So that gives me like a 95% success rate. Why would I miss it? No, I can do this. And it's a bit of self-talk, and it really works. As it says there, identifies and changes irrational, dysfunctional thoughts, unhelpful thoughts is the most simplest way of saying it. So these misinterpretations are the ones that will really start to bite into your performance level when you're on stage. Yes, we should. A type of CBT should be included in performance skills in the band. It should be discussed, but not just on the weeks preparing for a competition. It should be there all the time, because what you don't want in a band, and it's very easy for conductors and committees to do, is to say, oh, so-and-so is a bit of a liability on stage, we'll have to replace him, move him down onto, you know, 9th cornet and get someone else in. That's terrible in my mind, and we've all been involved with discussions like this on players. Oh, they can't deliver, they're not a stager. Well, that's just like saying, well, someone's not got a good sound. All right, so perhaps we ought to send them for lessons with X, Y, or Z. Well, in this case, if they don't deliver on stage, then perhaps we should be looking at ways to give them skills and coping mechanisms. We can't afford to be dismissive of players. We can't afford to let players down just because one element of their armory is weaker than others. So we should be saying, yes, we need to talk about this. It's not a taboo subject. It's not a weakness, saying, well, you know, last time I was on stage, I was sweating, my heart was, I couldn't get a note out, my mouth was dry. That's not a weakness. It's a skill that you've not been given yet. So everybody can do something. And the answer to the last one is yes, we are failing, absolutely failing, if we don't do this on a regular basis. I would say beware people with very little knowledge. There are lots of people out there that are really skilled at any of this and know about it. Musicians, there are some great books as well. If you don't fancy discussing it with people, there are some fantastic books. If anyone gets in touch with me later through Alex, he's got my email address and telephone number. Feel free to get in touch. I've got a load of books, not all heavy reading psychology ones. I've got some very, very straightforward ones, some written by psychologists that are musicians as well. Some really good ones, Butterflies and Bouquets, Notes from the Green Room. There are lots of really good books that are an easy read, but give you practical tips on how to deal with it, and then give you real life examples of people that have had similar experiences to what we're talking about today, and how they've managed to cope and find coping mechanisms that have made them stronger people and able to perform. If I'm talking too much, Alex, feel free to jump in, because you know it's not often I get a captive audience that can't run away. Well, they can run away. They can just hang on.
It's really interesting. Keep going.
This is just I'm not really into equations and things like that. I know that's more Alex's game with his chemistry skills, but this is just something that always makes me remember and makes it really simple. Technical skills you're given when you start practicing. You do your scales, you do your lip flexibilities, etc. And you get your musical skills, so being able to phrase and put music into the right context and make it sound presentable and nice. But the last one, performance skills, coping with nerves and concentration skills. Yeah. Being able to deliver in public what you've prepared in private, whatever level. So this just says you get a quality. If you've got all of those in place, you've got the technical skills, you've got the musical skills, you've got the performing skills or performance skills, you get a quality performance. You take any of them away and you lose the quality. You get a performance, but you lose the quality. So if you've not got a technique, but you make a nice sound, that's lovely, as long as you only ever play a slow melody. They'll say that's absolute, it's beautiful, it's quality. But then if you're asked to do something technical, it's not so much the quality. But either of those, you can have the great technique and a great musicality, beautiful sound. But if you can't perform, if you cannot deliver in public, no one will ever know. So we need all of those in place. And I know in the last session, we talked about the technical and the musical. There are a million people out there that deal with that, and there are loads and loads of books, as there are for the performance skills. But it does seem one that thankfully over the last, I've seen a change in the last 15 years or so that people are talking about it more, but it was a taboo subject at one point. I remember when I did my first set of research, which is 20 years ago, I went round the music colleges and were asking heads of departments about performance anxiety, as we definitely called it in those days, and what we should do. And the answers that came back, and one very eminent teacher at that time said to me, well, it's very simple. We shouldn't discuss it because those that can will, and those that can't will end up serving in McDonald's. And he was really rude and dismissive about it. And it made me laugh at first. And then I was really sad and thinking, wow, all those young adults that have been through his hands at music college, and he's created some great players, that those that have failed and aren't doing that now, or failed in his eyes and didn't make it as players, they perhaps we failed them and let them down. And I think that is the case. And in some ways it still is, because colleges and teachers, they don't always have the time, just don't have the time to spend with someone and give them coping mechanisms. It's a case of, well, you were terrible at that audition, so perhaps you ought to think of a different career. So yeah, no quality if those are missing, especially the performance skills. Concentration skills we've talked about before. We need those in place to be able to do that. Performance anxiety control mechanisms, that is so important. It's the final hurdle, and if you can't get this in place, then you can't show people what you can do. And again, I will stress, at whatever level that is. It's to me, it doesn't matter if you're a 6-year-old that wants to go out and play F and G march, or you're a 50-year-old that wants to go out and contest on the Royal Albert Hall. It doesn't make any difference. It's being able to deliver what you've practiced in private. Yeah, all elements in practice. We said that, right. I hope that makes sense to you. We only have ourselves to blame if we do not succeed. And conversely, you only have yourself to be proud of when you do succeed. It is your choice. I know that sounds a little bit finger pointy, what have you, but it's true. We can sit back and say, oh, I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. I've been giving my students at college lessons on Zoom, a bit like we're doing here, but they've been playing to me on Zoom since lockdown. And one of the questions I asked, if anyone are on there here listening, shame on you. I asked them, how much increase in your practice routine have you done since you've been in lockdown? Because most of them are back home with their parents. And to a man or to a woman or whatever, they all said they're doing less practice now than they did when they were at college. Oh, it's hard to get motivated, especially when it's sunny, or, well, you get tied up watching Netflix. I could not believe what I was hearing. I can't make them practice if they don't want to practice. That's their choice, and it's as it is our choice. I've never done as much practice since I've been in lockdown, and I'm loving it. You've just got to make it interesting. You've got to find things to do that are slightly different, and you're not looking at your watch after 15 minutes thinking, oh, have I done enough yet? I've got to the stage now where I'm finding really interesting things to do that are not necessarily a challenge, but are just different to what I normally do. And I've got to the point where my wife's now shouting me saying, you've been up there 3 hours, are you going to come back down yet? So yeah, if anybody wants to talk about exciting things to do, sat at your computer or whatever to practice, I've got loads, and it's great fun. This is just a little demonstration of where we are at the moment. Anybody that's done even sort of basic psychology will have seen these before. They come into everything, teacher training everywhere, does a sort of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. But in our situation, this is just slightly different, but it does show you that where we're at the moment, if you look at the basic needs at the bottom two, we've got now stay safe, stay safe at home, eat, and make sure yourself and your family and your property is all right. Yeah, that's where we are with the bottom two, physiological and safety. So they're ticked. We're all right. We're going in the right direction. The next one, where it says friendship, family, sexual intimacy, that's nowadays, while we're in lockdown, that really aims towards staying realistic with family, being tolerant and having space, giving people space. And when we go up to self-esteem, confidence, yeah, this is great because you can do something to improve. So your self-esteem, confidence and achievement should go up, which will in turn, if that's why you measure things, respect of others, respected by others, that should go up. So this is all in place. And the very top one, morality, creativity, problem solving, lack of prejudice, acceptance of facts. Acceptance of facts at the moment should be a case of dealing with where we are at this moment, accepting it, nothing we can do about it, unless you're in the government, I don't know. And the self-fulfillment is a case of record yourself, make challenges, do challenges with friends. Again, I had a colleague on today that him and his fellow bandsmen give themselves a challenge every week. I think they've had spaghetti westerns. I think it was the Arbon this week. They all have to they sent a piece of music each week to make the best fist of they can. And he said some of them are absolutely dreadful, but it's a bit of fun. And then they meet in the virtual pub afterwards. It's just finding things to make this area interesting, which in turn feeds this one, the psychological needs, which in turn makes this more tolerable. Oh, before I go on to this, can I give you just a warning, Alex? If you could you prepare one of the people for questions that they've got? It'll just give me time to move, because I do realise I sometimes need to come up for breath, don't I? Like, it can be a bit bombarding people. But this comment, while Alex is preparing that, today I will do what others won't. So tomorrow I can do what others can't. Apply that to your personal practice. Apply it to yourself. It might not make you the best player in the world. It might not do a lot of things. But what I find with that is, why can't, when someone says, oh yeah, I can't play that, or I can't do that, I can't reach that note. Well, I'll practice today. I won't put it off. I won't say, well, so-and-so can't do that, must be really difficult. I'll work at it. We talked before in the last webinar about goals and goal setting. I think it's really important to set yourself what we call proximal goals, which are short-term, easily achievable, small step goals, and the further distal goals or the long-term goals. So I would say, ooh, right, what could I do? What could I start doing? Well, I'll increase my practice by a measurable amount. I will say I'm going to do it every day, and I'm going to do it before my lunch or after my lunch, or if you're still one of those people working in this dreadful time, then before I eat, when I come in, I'm going to get changed, have a shower, whatever, and then I'm going to practice. I'm just going to do 30 minutes, and I'm going to do it on a regular basis. I'm going to do it every day. And if you do that, that's a measurable goal. By the time we get back into the band rooms, which could be a fair while, you will have massively improved. And that comes into play then. The next time you'll do what others can, or what you couldn't, which is even more important. Have you got someone for me there, Alex?
Yes, so we're going to be joined by Daniel Wilmot. And we'll just...
Do you want me to come off my stop my screen share so we can? I've got Daniel's on. Yes.
Hello, Daniel.
Hi, Roger. Hi, Alex.
Hi, Daniel. You all right?
Yeah, good, thanks. It was actually my dad's question, but he's a bit of a technophobe, so I set it all up for him. So here he is.
Okay, have you got the question there, Roger?
I have, yes.
Because I think in some respects you've already begun to touch on it. Shall I read the question?
Absolutely, yeah, please.
As it was asked. So the question was, there's currently a lot of conversation about the promoting of positive mental health in banding, and quite rightly so. But this can often feel incongruous with the highly competitive and often adversarial nature of banding, particularly contests. And I just wondered what you thought, or your ideas about reconciling those two elements. And I am a mental health professional myself, so very familiar with the things that you're talking about.
Yeah.
But I was thinking in particular, those leaders, musical directors, who, as you touched on earlier, perhaps not themselves particularly well versed or skilled in nurture, compassion, and drawing out those positives, and rely an awful lot on sticks more than carrots.
Yeah.
And then the competitive nature of contests, where the majority of the people around you are kind of willing you to lose, which in terms of the arts and music is not really what music is about.
Yeah, I think it's a great question. Thank you, Dan. You're not Daniel. Sorry, I didn't get your name.
It's Alan.
Alan. Thanks for that, Alan. Yeah, really good. And thanks, Daniel, for doing it for him.
No worries.
It's a very similar question. Colin Randall also asked a very similar question. He said, what do you feel the impact of contesting on performance anxiety? And it's a similar sort of question. I think yours is twofold about the conductors and the contesting scene. You're right. A lot of conductors and some players in bands have no idea of the impact of their throwaway comments. I think we've all been sat in band rooms where a conductor's just looked at a player and gone, do you know what? That's right. I've been in a band room where a conductor looked down and turned to another section and said, make sure that chair's empty next week, and pointed at a player. Now, just think what that can do long term to a player. And it doesn't necessarily need to be a young player that can be affected. Anybody can be affected negatively by comments like that. If you get enough of those comments, or sometimes it can be one comment, the impact. Someone did mention, one lady did mention, should we talk about, oh yeah, this lady, Pamela Green. If you're out there, Pamela, hi. It was a good question. You mentioned, should bands be involved with the psychoeducation about its anxiety and function? Now the amygdala plays a vital role. I think we can get too deep into some of these things. I think if we start looking at limbic systems and things like that, then we're going to get bogged down, and some people are just going to go, yeah, do you know what? I'll just deal with it. But I think there should be education for conductors initially to deal with their management style. Oh, everybody vanished. Did you vanish then, Alan? I think I lost Alan. Did I?
Sorry, I think that was my fault. He's still watching.
Oh, he's still watching. Well, yeah, I think conductors do need some sort of training, just to make them a little bit more self-aware of some of the comments that they can make, flippant comments, and sometimes not so flippant comments to players can have a massive impact on someone's life, not just on their playing and not just on the bandroom activity, but on their life in general. So I think we have to be a little bit more aware of that. You're back. Thanks, Alan. Conductors need training, but the contesting side of things, it is a bit gladiatorial, isn't it? When you go to contests, and I don't think I'll stand corrected, but I've never been to a contest and thought that someone's willing people to play bad. I've certainly never done that. I've wanted to play better than everyone else, but I've never wanted to win a competition because they all died and we scraped through. I think that's a bit extreme, but I get it. I think the unnecessary pressures of contesting, perhaps in some ways associated with the mental processing of, if you like, gladiatorial arenas, survival of the fittest, and macho men have to get through, and I don't get nervous, I'm just going to go do it, and then the shame when you've done something wrong on stage. And also, Kenny will love this one, but brass stats don't always help when you're looking, bands are looking where they are in the rankings, and suddenly they've dropped to 900th behind 25 Lithuanian bands, and they feel that turning up to band practice every week is just a waste of time now, because two blokes with accordions and a flute are better than them. I know I'm being a little bit flippant with that, but I think it does have a negative effect. And again, it's not, I don't think any of this is deliberate. I just think over the years, it started off as quite a macho, sort of male-dominated culture where people just rocked up, heavy drinking, lots of playing. I'm not talking about the SA bands, obviously, but where they turned up, they played, the survival of the fittest. And it was cutthroat, you're rubbish, you let us down in that contest, you're out. Those days have gone. We're trying to, I think, move towards a more mainstream music making, where if you go and see, people still get nervous in symphony orchestras when they've got something, as they call it, pearly to do, or something quite exposed or difficult, but they deal with it, because at the end of the day, when you talk to these players, then they know that it's all about the performance at the end. It's about making music. It's about the art rather than the results. And I think while ever we've got the culture, which I do like the contesting side of things. As I said before, I love getting on stage and just playing, because the conductor can't stop you. For one thing, you can't sort of chastise you and make you sit still. You can just get on with it and do it. And I love just that sort of artistic side where you can just go and play. And I also think contesting does push quality and standards. How many bands would have the opportunity to play some of the great halls they do, and also push themselves in terms of really getting to the bones of difficult pieces and working hard. So I think it's good. I think the mental approach to it, though, is wrong by most of us, and the players in the band rooms are not fully equipped to deal with it. They've not been told that it's not life and death. If it goes wrong, it's human error. Things can go wrong. Your valve could stick anyway, or you could just cough when you took a breath. But we put the odds in our favour by developing the skills and coping mechanisms as you would in normal life. If someone's a slightly less confident person, you wouldn't say, well, in that case, just don't go outside. You'd develop their skills so that they could go, and they could go out into the wild world. They could go into a shop. They could interact with other people. And I think that's in its extreme, but I think in banding, we've got to give people the skills that they can go out on stage and they can say, this is what I've practiced. I'm sharing it with you now, and not feel that they've got to deliver something unreasonable or unrealistic. But I do think bands should be talking about this on a regular basis. I know I've been doing these band room visits, and it for Buffet, for Besson, and it pops up every time. Apart from the bands that don't know why I've come, but it pops up every time. Bands say, right, how can we deal with it? And it's, you can give a quick talk on it and give them ideas, but they've got to follow it up. And I think that it's bands should be talking. They should be sat around in groups on a regular basis, even at band practice night. Just sit around for 20 minutes, have a chat. There's strength in sharing experiences, as you know, if you're in that profession. If you sit around and share experiences, you realise you're not the only one that feels like that. It's perfectly normal. So how do you cope? Well, I get on stage and I do this, that, and the other. I mean, just for everyone out there, when the coping mechanisms that I talk about, and we haven't gone into any depth on them, unfortunately, yet. The first thing is I would deal with my breathing, because when you get nervous, we talked about the things that can go wrong. How does it affect you physiologically to start with? Sweaty palms, cold fingers. Blood goes away from here because it's not needed in fight or flight. It's just not needed when you get nervous. When you've got a real threat or a perceived threat, blood's taken away. Your mouth goes dry. Adrenaline's pumping through your body. Your mind's racing. It's all over the place. None of these things are any good to a brass player. They're no good to a conductor. So if a conductor goes into meltdown, he starts giving cues left, right, and centre. You either go with him or you just look up and go, I don't think so. Which, again, we've all been in those situations. So it's, the first thing I would do is, before I go on stage, if I'm feeling slightly at raised levels of excitement, anxiety, whatever you want to call it, I'd sort my breathing out. Because if you sort your breathing out, so deep breaths against my waistband, slow in, slow out, taking them in through your nose if possible, because if you take them in your mouth, you could end up drying it too much. But slow and deep and deliberate, and letting them out slowly, you'll feel the world around you sort of slows down. And all that's doing really is sending signals into your brain saying, this is not a threat. Now, the adrenaline that's in your system isn't going to go straight away. We all know that. But what it will do is it'll allow you to assess the situation as not a threat. So I know some of the questions said, well, no matter how much I tell my brain and it accepts that I'm not nervous. My body still says I am. It doesn't work that way around. Your body's only reacting to what your brain's telling it. So if your brain's saying, yeah, she's kidding, you should be scared, this is terrible, you're going to be all right, laughing stock at this, then even if it's just a little voice inside that you're not fully aware of, then your body's going to go into meltdown and it's going to let you down. So we've got to slow the breathing down and just focus on the job. Again, I said this in the last thing, when I played in the band full time, find it hard to concentrate. Yeah, I've just got a really bad attention span, and if I'm not kept challenged, I get mischievous and annoying for conductors. So what I used to do every couple of weeks, I would say, I'm just going to stare at my music and I'm going to concentrate as if we're on a contest stage. So I would look and I would just get on with it. And then when you're on stage, it's not a different experience. But players in the band room have got to be aware of these coping mechanisms to be able to do that. Getting blood back in your fingers, making sure that the blood's still there. So just some small exercises before you go on stage, and then breathing as you get down, focus, get everything in position, right? This is just like being in the band room. My stand's there, the conductor's there, my perfect line of sight. But back to what you said, Alan, it's got to be done on a regular basis. I think contesting still has its place. I don't think it's, we've all been to contests, had a disaster. You still have to go to work the next day. You still have to, do the things around the home. Nobody really cares. I used to come into my wife really angry and frustrated. Oh, we played really well. We didn't get anything. Oh, right. Do you want something to eat? It's like, oh, right. Yeah, fair enough. Back in the real world. Yeah. So I think we do sometimes blow it out of context. But yes, bands should be spending a percentage of time on dealing with coping mechanisms for everyone in the band and not just being dismissive of A, B, and C that can't do it. We owe it to everybody in the band to allow them to, if we've got them in the band in the first place, if it's just the performance skills that's lacking, it's our job to make sure they can do it, to deliver in public. Does that go some way to answering what you asked?
Yeah.
I go on again.
Yeah, no, I think you're onto something in terms of mental health. It's such a big, broad topic from the acute end of real poor mental ill health through to, as you say, at the kind of broader end of it, a lot of these pervasive things that affect most of us. And I just think a bit more kind of positive coaching sometimes from the person in the middle rather than sometimes a kind of rather punitive,
It is. It's brutal, but it goes back to we're a long way away from what it used to be. But I've been in bands where the conductors have been absolutely brutal and dismissive and rude to players without any thought of the knock-on effects of that. I mean, because the knock-on effects aren't just for that person, but for the family and everybody else that they come into contact with, or how they interact with people later in life or in work situations. So yeah, well, you're right. We do owe it. And I think it's a collective responsibility. You can't just say the conductors need to do that. Then the committees or the organisers, the chairman of the band, the players in the band need to be collectively saying, that's not acceptable. I know what you mean, but let's do it a different approach. And it'd be great if we could do that. A more nurturing environment for people and a little bit more mindful. I know mindfulness is a big thing at the moment, and I get it. It's the same stuff all wrapped up. It keeps coming back. Wrapped up in different packages, and so does all of these psychological approaches. The chimp paradox and all these things. They're all the same. Just wrap it up differently and say it. So it's whatever's relevant to today's society. We need to be doing on a regular basis and making sure that we're not offensive and we're not damaging to people in the band rooms. It doesn't need to be anymore. We really don't need to be like that. Yeah.
Thank you.
Great. We've only got a couple of minutes, I guess, before we go into a break, haven't we, Alex? So I'll just go back to my screen.
Yeah, you've got about 10 minutes till we need to start.
Great. Oh, fantastic. Yeah. Oops, I'm trying to share what I'm already there.
And just to say thank you to Daniel and Alan for joining us.
Great. Just going to have a quick talk about in fact, no, I'm going to go back because we talked about life at home. I go back to these slides up here. Oh, what happened there? Screen sharing has stopped. Has my screen sharing stopped?
Yes, it has.
Has it? Right. Wait, I'm going to try and find it again. It's hiding. It's lurking somewhere. I know it's there. Screen share. That should be it. Yes. Are we on?
Yeah, that's the one.
Right. We went through this. Let's go to this one. Can we control it? We briefly talked there with Alan about control mechanisms. There are lots and lots of different ways to control performance anxiety. People talk about mindfulness, they talk about meditation, centering, they talk about breathing, yoga, lots of things. They all work. They all work. I would say the first thing is, though, is to find its causes. Everyone's slightly different, so find and be really honest with yourself in private, if you wish. What is causing you, or what are the causes for you that you feel unable to perform to your max in public? Now, you might not know, but try to analyze it. Is it your fear of failure? Is it you don't think you're good enough? Is it comments you've had from bands? Just try and get to them, and then you can start to look at if once you've got the causes and you know what the symptoms are, you can do something about it. If you don't know the causes, but you've got a good idea of what these symptoms are there, then you can still control it. I mean, in an ideal world, I like to know what the causes are and then deal with the symptoms later. But if you can't identify the causes because I don't know, I don't think I'm bothered. There's obviously underlying symptoms, but underlying causes, but you can go and look at the symptoms. Now, the symptoms are roughly the same for most people. We talked about dry mouth, we talked about sweaty palms, shaking limbs. Stand up and play a solo. You see people, they start with one leg starts shaking, and then they go to the other leg and it starts shaking. Then they lock both legs out and your full body starts shaking. Or you forget to breathe properly. You start taking little shallow sparrow-like breaths and don't get to the end of the phrases, and your sounds like a nose flute or a kazoo when you're on stage, which it normally isn't. Lots of these things, your production's bad, you can't get notes. You've got to look at all these symptoms and think, right, how can I stop this from happening? How can I get rid of these symptoms? It starts off with the breathing. If your mouth is really dry, I always say that's because of the adrenaline going round. That's a byproduct of that. Start to scrape your tongue very gently at the back of your mouth with your teeth, and again, just bite it very gently, because what you should get lots of saliva then. If you bite it too hard, it's blood that you'll taste in your mouth, and that's not as helpful, especially when it starts to coagulate in your mouthpiece. So a gentle scraping of your tongue, that should help. Breathing, definitely. Moving the muscles in the face, moving the muscles in the hand, making sure that when you take a breath to play, and includes writing it on your part, make sure it's a good breath, a deep breath, that you've got really good full lungs, and then you can sustain, you can play with a good warm full sound, because if you don't, then things start to suffer, and then you hear something suffering, your brain's going, this is bad, this is bad, this is bad, and it's like going downhill on a mat and a helter-skelter. It just gets worse and worse and worse till you hit rock bottom. And then people say, well, I don't know why I bother, I might pack in. And that's the worst thing that could ever happen. We could talk about things like drugs, which were very popular in the 70s. Sorry, the 80s. Certain bands, which shall remain nameless, but were really a good band at that time. The conductor did hand out propranolol, beta blockers, to players in his band without prescription. He wasn't a GP, but he was giving these tablets out to people that he thought needed them. Now, they started to come into performance before that with snooker players that wanted to make sure that they didn't have a shaky hand. So they started being prescribed propranolol, half Indrals mainly, to stop the shake, which it did. They used a lot for people with arrhythmia. It levels out the heart because as an adrenoceptor, they stop the adrenaline reaching parts that cause you to shake. I would say no. I did research going back again many years. We did some research with control groups. We did them with CBT, and we did some under license with people with beta blockers. The beta blockers didn't fare any better. In fact, they were just a few percent less than the people that had CBT, because the people with CBT felt that they personally had control. So can we control it? It's a definite yes. Whether we want to spend time controlling it and finding control mechanisms or coping mechanisms, that is a completely different question. A lot of people say they do, that they want to work through something and do it, and then they just don't have the will, and they leave it because, oh, I've got nothing major on, no contest until next March or whatever. And then when it comes around to it, they realize that actually by leaving it, it doesn't go away. It doesn't make it any better. I know someone did put, how can I prepare myself after 30 years of cornet? Laura, if you're there, Laura Jones, 30 years of cornet playing, still can't imagine standing up to play a solo. How do you take that first step forward? I would say bravely. Excuse me. I would, yeah, definitely bravely do it. Do it at a small scale to start with. Play for your friend. If you're in a band, play for your friends in the band room. Organize just a music evening where everybody plays. It's not a competition, a music evening where everyone plays a solo. Do it now. Record yourself. Record yourself online. Stick it on there. People are looking for all sorts, and you're not. If anybody that's out there would judge you in a negative way, they don't deserve to be listening to music anyway. I listen to all sorts of performances, small children doing it, and seasoned pros. If anybody's got the nerve and the skill to get up and do anything, I'll listen to it, and I think, yeah, good on you, because the more positive experiences we have, we talked about, practice makes permanent, and only proper practice makes it the same with performance. Proper performance and positive performance experience makes it excellent for you. So get some done. Get out to your friends, play in public, play to your family, get on your feet, do a solo, record yourself, send it to friends that you trust to start with. Send them to me. I'll listen, give you some feedback and send them back. I'm sure Alex can arrange all that. We're there to help each other, really. And what we don't want is negative experiences taking over our lives. Excuse me, I'm just going to have to... oh, I hope it's just a little cough I've got. So identify the symptom. I keep going back because I can't stress it enough. Once you've got the symptoms, coping mechanism, breathing, concentration. An old friend of mine, who's sadly no longer with us, Jim Watson, used to play with Philip Jones Brass Ensemble, amongst many other things he did. And one thing he used to quote from Philip Jones, he always said, while ever you can concentrate and you can breathe, you'll be able to play. He said, because the failure in performances is always caused with either concentration going or breathing. And he's absolutely right. Even with anxiety or excitement, your breathing suffers and your concentration goes. If you get nervous, you stop breathing properly, you stop concentrating. So if you can concentrate and breathe, so it's a case of when you're nervous, get the breathing under control, really deliberate breathing and slow. And then remember to breathe when you're playing, good air in, good sound out, and concentrate on the task you've got to do. And I'm guessing that Alex is going to want to pop in any second and say something. It must be nearly time to go and do our clap.
Yeah, so at 8 o'clock we'll have a little break, or we'll stop just before it so that anyone that wants to go out in their street can do so. So this evening we're going to be playing a performance that's been put together by Rockingham Band.
My old band.
Which seems to suit the fact that it's also the VE Day celebration tomorrow. So I know that many people will have had plans for some celebrations before the lockdown, and I think that those have had to change. And it seems there's some confusion over whether people are going outside their front doors to play the last post at 11 or 2:55. So I'm going to be doing both for my street. So this evening I'm just going to share my screen now, and we'll have a few minutes break so that we can join in the clap for carers.
Excellent.
So I'll just set that up now, and we'll be back in 2 or 3 minutes. There we go. That's Rockingham Band's video for this week. So thank you very much to Rockingham. And interestingly, that was an arrangement done by I think Martin, the principal cornet of the band, who has done that little arrangement. So as a little plug for next week's webinar, we've got Philip Harper back, who's doing a session on arrangement. So if you'd like to have a go at doing an arrangement for your band, have a little bit of a have a little bit of a go this week and see what ideas you can come up with, and then come back next week, and Philip will be giving you some pointers as to how you can structure those and look at some of the different genres as well. So if you do that and have a question for him, make sure you get those questions in before next week's webinar. So are you back with us, Roger? Yeah. Oh,
yes, I was muted, but yes, I am. Yes. My hands are red. I'm clapping. So. Yeah.
It was. We started about a minute shorter than I think I realised I had. So sorry if anyone's still waiting to come back.
So can I go
next, Roger? Would you like a questionnaire or?
Yes, please. Yep. Yeah, and then I'll just do the last bit about the mental health at home.
So I think we've got Kirsten Schneider who's got a question.
Yeah.
Let me just bring in Kirsten. Are you with us, Kirsten?
She is.
There we go. Hello.
Hi from Switzerland.
Hello.
Very nice.
Hi. I'm a conductor and I have 2 questions.
Go for it.
So the first one is, as a conductor, which possibilities have I to keep calm the musicians? I tried several elements like visualizing on the scene during the rehearsal, and of course some brave exercises, but I think you may have other ideas that could help me.
Great questions, Kirsten. Thank you. Yeah, I'm going to. I'll do half of it now because I'm gonna. I've got another person that's an MD, a conductor that's lined up to ask about. It's Mark, if you're there. Hi, Mark. He talked about what exercises can an MD do with a band to calm nerves before a contest performance. So
I don't think Mark's been able to join us, Roger.
has he not? Right, we'll deal with it now because it's the same thing. I think the only element of Mark's I wouldn't have mentioned was before a contest performance. I think it's before any performance, really. And you're doing the right thing. Visualization is a great way. Talking to them about realistic outcomes and what you expect from them and what they should expect from themselves. One of the things I used to say in a slightly flippant way to the bands that I played with and went on stage, the last comment I always made before we entered any stage, I used to turn to them and say, "Oh, don't forget." And what? I said, "Every man for themselves," because without being too flippant, it is every man for themselves on there. You're the only person that's in charge of everything, but each player should just go on there with the knowledge that they've got one job to do, nothing more. No heroes, no idiots doing extra. Oh, you can leave this, I'll do it now. You've prepared something in a certain way, you've done your painting, you've got it all nice and coloured, and there you go, it's nice and coloured, and you're not going to go on stage and say, I tell you what, it's a big hall, let's change the colour of it. You're not going to do that. You'll judge from the centre if you want a little bit more or less, but they should go out and go, this is what I've been told to do, I'm going to do it. And I think they have to be reminded of that on a regular basis, that coping mechanisms, breathing, focus, repeating, do what you've practiced, no more, no less. No more, no less, all the time. Just do your job, don't do any extra. And writing on the music, if they're using music, because I know not everybody uses music, even in competitions, but if they're going on a stage and they've got no comments on there, I write stupid things like breathe, gasp, breathe, big arrows, just to remind me. And it's nearly always things like that. Again, I've got a friend, I hope he's not on here, that used to color code his music, and I couldn't understand anything. There were crescendos in one color, diminuendos in a different color, all dynamics had a different color. It was just too much information for me to cope with. So I kept mine simple, just telling me to breathe, telling me where to rest, where to play, when to turn my page. Because the silly things, it's the silly, stupid things that let players down. You do all that preparation, you've worked for 2, 3, 4 weeks, and then a player forgets to turn his music and he's having to play with one hand as they're doing it. And you think, why have we just thrown it all away just because someone forgot something? So it's making sure that the coping mechanisms for performance anxiety are there. So again, we talked about breathing and focus. Visualization is fantastic. Visualization in the band room, visualization on stage, making sure that they don't suddenly sit in a different formation or, oh, it's a big stage, let's spread out. Why? When you're used to turning someone else's music or sharing a mute or passing a mute, sit in the same formation, you stand in the same situation, same position, make sure that everyone's got their eye contact. Again, it sounds really basic, but unfortunately, as a player and as an adjudicator, I've seen too many performances where bands go onto a contest stage and you don't recognize the band from what you've heard in their rehearsal rooms because they've left it all in there. And it's almost they walk onto stage and it's like, this is a new day. Let's just do something completely wild and different, and leave the conductor thinking, what's going on? So I love it that you're taking some sort of responsibility for your players, but they've also got to buy into this. They've got to accept that it's a collective. You can only help guide, point in the right directions, but ultimately they've got to buy into it. They've got to accept that there's no such thing as a perfect player that does everything right all the time, but they've got to put all the odds in their favor. They've got to stack everything in their favor, that so they do breathe right, they do focus, they do sit in the right position, they've got all their equipment, and they can practice this on a regular basis. You know, every 3 weeks you can say, right, contest performance. So it's no talking, it's no fidgeting, it's not drawing on your music, you know, a picture of the conductor, or asking about where they're going to drink tonight, all the usual things. It's like, no, sit properly, no talking, it's going to be silence, and then we're going to play. And get them to analyze it. No, they always think the conductor's going to record it, go away and tell us what we did wrong. They've got to accept responsibility and think themselves, right, what could I have improved upon? It's being your own critic, if you like. It's taking yourself from your performance and sitting at the other side and going, right, if I was judging, what would I have said? Perhaps I was late picking my cornets up and that entry was a bit bad. So they've got to start to critique themselves in a positive way, though, not sort of whipping themselves or anything like that, but be saying, yeah, I think I did all right on this bit, but I didn't breathe enough in the slow stuff. So I need to get a bigger breath and make a better sound and have more eye contact because I was dragging and I wasn't following the conductor. So it made me out with the euphonium. Lots of basic things. So they've got to buy into your idea of, we're going to do this so that we can deliver in public what we've practiced in private. But what you're doing, visualization in the band room, and then on stage, the visualization. You're back in the band room. You're back in the band room. Oh, there's the clock. There's the door. There's the bar. They don't count because the people behind you don't count. You're playing for you.
Yeah.
And that's what the band should know when they go on stage. They're playing for themselves. Let's show ourselves that we can do this. And once you get into that mentality where it's great that the audience like it, it's even better when an adjudicator likes it when you're in a competition. But ultimately, it's no good doing it if you don't like it as players. So they've got to go out to please themselves and come off stage and go, do you know what? I loved that. And it doesn't matter what result I got. I loved that performance and we played as good as we could do. That's success. So they've got to buy into that. They really have. I know I get excited about that, but results have always been a bonus. If I've gone into a competition and got a result, bonus. But my biggest thing when I go to a competition is, did I enjoy it? Did I feel satisfied? Or did I come away going, could have been better? And if that's the case, then I'm disappointed with me or whoever it was in the band.
Yeah, I find it's difficult from a pedagogical point of view to try things like mental studies or yoga or something like that, because I find it difficult to not be ridiculous.
Yeah.
Because not every musician appreciate this kind of exercise or studies.
No, they probably don't. But you know, dinosaurs became extinct, and that happened for a reason. And unfortunately, the people that don't think it's real and I don't need to do that, they're the ones that will probably let you down. Or they're in a position where nobody can hear them because they sometimes put the part in, they sometimes don't put the part in. So I wouldn't worry about those at all. There's always going to be people that go,
yeah, of course.
and you know, I don't care. They can do what they want. They can go fishing, or they can go and play in, you know, Upton Blubberworks band and do what they want. And it doesn't matter. But what you should stick to is your idea that collectively you can make things better. And it's not going to make, excuse me, I don't know where this has come from. It's not that you're going to make the band play better through this. You're going to make them play more consistently well. So that standard, it starts to become the norm. Then you build on that standard on a regular basis. You can't build on something that's crumbly and no foundation. So all you need to do is get it established first and get it solid, so that you know what to expect when you go on stage. Right, we can deliver. So next time, I'm going to challenge you a little bit more, and there's going to be solos for all of you this time because I know you'll do it, and they'll feed from it as well. The more people are given and the more they can achieve, the more fun it is. And it is about fun ultimately, whether it's a competition or a concert. It's about having fun as a performer, as a conductor. You're performing, you've got an instrument in front of you and you want it to work. But at the moment, It could be that, you know, you're playing an organ and some of the stops don't work all the time, the stick, and you don't want that because it's unpredictable and it's not much fun when you go like that and they go, and nothing comes out. Nobody wants to be in that situation. So yeah, they've got to buy into your idea of there's this thing to do. And it could be that you spend time doing breathing exercises before a rehearsal.
Yeah.
Or in place, you know, just sat around breathing exercises and letting other people lead it as well, letting sections go off and say, right, you're the principal or you're the piano player, lead a section or do something on breathing, bring it back, and we'll do it with the band.
Mhm.
There's lots of things that can be done, but it's they've got to buy it. The players have got to buy into it. That's the key with any of this.
Thanks very much.
No,
May I ask you a little second question?
Yeah, of course you can.
I'm a lucky one because as a director, I'm not really stressed or I'm not worried. But sometimes it can be that I'm a little bit stressed. What do you think as a conductor? Should we try to not show this to anyone, or can we accept this? And what's your opinion?
I think players like to get confidence from the musical director. I've got to admit they do, as they do their principal players. I think it's like being in the military. If you've got a colonel at the front of a charge and he's going, I'm not sure we're going to do this very well, then it doesn't really instill you with confidence. But that said, you are human, and they've got to see that, and they've got to see that your preparation is the same as theirs. It's for a conductor, confidence for me that I've seen with conductors comes from their preparation in the music. If you know the music intimately, then you're fine, because you'll be so busy with what you're doing and into that moment with the music, you've no time for anything else. And players should be the same. They shouldn't be sat worried about, oh, someone from this band is sat listening and he's a really good player and his sister plays in this band. You haven't got time for that. If you're immersed in the job that you're doing, as most conductors, you see good conductors, they've practiced it so much. The score's there as a reminder, but they know, I've got a cue. They don't necessarily know it's an E flat. They don't know that doesn't really matter, but they know the shape of the music, what they're trying to deliver most of the time. It's human nature to be a little bit apprehensive, but some of your, if you like, some of your excitement or anxiety probably stems from the fact that you're not quite sure that your band is going to deliver everything that you've asked them to do. And then I get it. Yeah, you're going to stand there, and if things start collapsing in front of you, it's not necessarily the players that feel exposed. You know, you do that and nothing happens, you look a bit silly.
So poker face.
Yeah, but they only see the back, the band. You're melting. The people behind sort of chuckling as you're doing this, and nothing's happening.
Okay.
So it's preparation, but there's no shame. Absolutely no shame in saying, you know, I get a little bit anxious, but I'm anxious because I want you to do so well. And I think that's the key. If they know that your only nerves, your only excitement is because you know what they're capable of, and you want them to deliver that and enjoy it as much as you can, then they're on side. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much.
No problem. No, take care.
Have a nice time. Take
And you.
care.
Bye.
Bye.
Good questions there, Alex.
Great. Do you want to go back to your presentation?
Yes, please. Yes, please. I'll just go back to if I get to the right slide. Am I sharing? Yes, I'm sharing. I'll skip forward a little bit now. So we can go back to any of these with the other questions, but I'm just going to nip forward. We talked about that. Life at home. Can you all see that? I don't know if that's in the way, is it? No. Yeah, there you go. It will help to try and see this life at home as we are in lockdown now as a different period of time in your life, and not necessarily a bad one. I'm guessing there's a few of you that are listening at the moment that are furloughed or they're not able to work or whatever. We have to accept where we are. Life at home, a different rhythm of life, a chance to be in touch with others in different ways than usual. It's certainly true for me. I've never spent as much time on Zoom as I have in these last few weeks. But it gives you a chance to focus on things that are important. And I'm not saying work isn't important. I'm not saying that other things aren't important, but this is how I would see how I'm managing to stay relatively upbeat and make the most of it. Try to plan your days. I hate organization. My wife's a planner. She has lists for everything. It doesn't work for me. If she gives me a list of things she wants me to do, I'll either lose the list or do my best to ignore it. It's just the way I'm built. I will do the things on the list, but when I'm ready and without a plan. But everyone's different. So if I'm what they call I'd say busily idle. So I like to do things at my pace and when I'm ready to do them. I've not had a minute since we've been in lockdown. And it says in the second one there, building some flexibility to the plan. That's definitely my way of doing it. If I've got a plan, then if it says, dig the front garden or do something with the patio, then that's all right, but maybe not on Monday and Tuesday. It could be another time, but do it. Factor in some exercise. It's really important wherever you live, whatever you're doing, to get some exercise. I know I don't look like it, but it's good for your mental well-being, not just your physical well-being. But most of what we're talking about at the moment is to keep mentally strong in this time. So some exercise, just walking around, walking the stairs, doing steps on the stairs, doing anything, laying on your back with tins of beans, doing what you like. Factor in some relaxation. Now, everybody's different with relaxation. Relaxation doesn't necessarily mean lounging in a chair with a pint of beer. It could mean sitting with your cornet in front of a PC and recording yourself or playing. Certainly is for me. I find that relaxing. I also find watching ridiculous films. It could be anything, old John Wayne films. It could be anything. I just stare at it and I find it relaxing. Connecting with others, factor in some of that. So, as I mentioned before, a friend of mine, he's doing every week they do a challenge, musical challenge, and they're not all great players. He's got a complete mixed bag, and it's just fun. They're given some music. They do a recording of this music, and they all ship it in. They all listen to it, and they all sort of laugh with each other. It's not at each other because they're friends, and then they all have a virtual drink together afterwards, and just sharing jokes and all sorts of things. So, do that. Factor in connecting with others. It can be strangers. It could be people you've met on this. It can be me. It could be your family. It could be people in your band. Whoever. Set challenges. Massive yes for that one. Use it as a time. Use it as a time to move forward. Factor in a challenge that, right, I want to play this piece. You've got time. So I want to play this piece. By the end of the lockdown, I want to be able to play at least the first movement of this concerto or this lovely piece I've heard on a recording. Do it. Set the challenges, learn a language, do whatever it takes. But I'm talking in musical terms, just for your own mental well-being. Set small challenges, proximal ones, these small steps that I can do a little bit more with my playing. Record yourself. We've all got access to, I guess we've all got access to phones and computers and different things. Put things on like GarageBand or any other of the apps that you can record yourself, even just normal video recording on your phone, your sort of smartphone. Multi-track. Record yourself, play it back, send it to a friend. Have fun with it. Turn it into games. But you will definitely, if you keep doing this, you're going to improve and move forward. Do not dwell on what you used to do or should be doing. This is a big one that my wife in particular, we'd have been doing this by now, we'd have been doing this, or we could have gone here and we missed this. It doesn't matter. Yes, if you want to mention it, but there's nothing we can do about the current situation. Absolutely nothing we can do. So we just have to say, yeah, this is. And what is we just have to go along with things at the moment. Do not listen to unhelpful social media. There's all sorts going on, isn't there? We're going to be doing this now for 2 years. I don't really partake much on social media. not on Facebook or anything like that. LinkedIn's about as exciting as I go, and that's because you don't get millions of messages all the time. Listen to the news once a day, that's it for me. But it can be soul destroying, it can be depressing, because most of the news leads with, you know, sad stories, and they are sad stories of more lives lost. We know that's the case. We don't have to listen to it every day. We just need to know where we are and anything useful. Yeah. Catastrophe theories and outcomes, they can do you more harm than good, because you think, oh, what's the possibility? Will there be an end to this? When I've been guarding at the front of lots of people walking by and stopping to talk to you, which is great because it means I stop digging. But it can drive you insane. It can drive you mad thinking about what could and what possible. Forget any of that. Deal with the here and now. Just keep yourself in a nice, simple, realistic situation where people that know better than I do are dealing with this. They're in the same situation. It'll move forward when they tell us it's going to move forward. So just accept. Do not set unrealistic or over demanding schedules, because if you do, then you're going to be really disappointed and feel down that you've not managed to meet them. So just be realistic. We've talked before about being flexible. So don't say, right, I'm going to do all my garden, I'm going to paint the house, I'm going to do this. Yeah, it's great. That's again, we talk about the proximal goal. That's in an ideal world. If you've got loads of time, that's going to happen. But for now, I'm going to deal with A and B. And when that's done, I'll look at the list again and see what else is there, and I'll tick one off. But I'm not going to be upset if I don't. Do not neglect yourself and your family or friends. So make sure that you have some sort of routine. You don't just slob around in your PJs all day, or even worse. Make sure that you do treat yourself. Yes, you're not. If you're in isolation, you're not going to be getting ready for work. You're not going to be putting a suit on. But there's nothing to stop you getting ready and smartening yourself up, and treating yourself every now and then. So be sensible, and the same with your family and friends. Talk to them. They're going through the same things, and not everyone can put a brave face on. Don't ignore government guidelines. So yeah, that goes without saying, doesn't it? I think we're all being quite sensible. There's only a few. When I went to pick up my paint from the Wix DIY place today, I was very surprised at the car park full of caravans and people running about. One gent in his undies getting washed in a bowl right next to me. It's a marvellous sight at, I think it was 9:15 this morning. Loved it. Do focus on the here and now. Talking about mindfulness and centering yourself and talking about everything that's good in your life. Do that. This is what we're dealing with. Make sure that you are dealing with it, and make sure that you know what you're dealing with. So if you're at home, you're dealing with yourself, your family, your friends, and your house. Or if you're in Alex's situation, you're dealing with a massive hole. Listen to helpful media from reputable sources. So choose a station that you're going to believe in, and just listen to it once a day or so. You don't need constant updates. Yeah, the bracketed part is for me if you enjoy structure, which I don't. So set realistic schedules. Treat yourself and your family and friends. That doesn't necessarily mean going and buying lots of things, but be kind to yourself. Don't, I could be doing this, I'm not earning this, I should be. No. Be calm about things. Do adhere to government guidelines. Be kind to yourself. Keep saying this. Treat yourself. Be kind to yourself. Yeah. We're all in this together. So there's nothing we can do. And that's the end of that show. It should say, nice to stay safe. We can go back to questions now, Alex, because really I could go into further depth about the sort of mental health side of things. But it does seem that on a I'll stop sharing here. It does seem that on a webinar like this, when we're talking generally, to go into any great depth could be counterproductive. If anybody wants to go into depth about any one of the subjects at all, as last time, feel free to get in touch. I'm around all the time, and I've got lots of time, and it's not a problem. I'll speak to anyone. But what we don't want people to think about is that whether it's performance anxiety or even your own personal mental health due to the situation we're in now, it's not insurmountable. All of these, both of these subjects, they're manageable without question. If you're feeling stressed because of the current situation, it's manageable. If you feel overwhelmed when you're in a performance situation, it's manageable. And it doesn't take long to go from struggling to enjoying. And it is a mindset. And sometimes you get people say, you just got to suck it up and deal with it. That's great. I've even been down that road with my wife. It doesn't work. We're all different, and sometimes you have to be really prescriptive about the pathway that they have to take to get to that situation where they go, yeah, I get it. It works for me now. So yes, we can go back to questions.
Great.
Sorry.
Well, I think we've got Claire Weirs lined up.
See a picture of Claire. Either she's frozen or she's just put a picture of herself up.
Are you with us, Claire? If you're unmute yourself. How about that? Are you with us, Claire?
Yes, I might let them cool down overnight. Just sort of have I was a bit something nice, but then. And I'll take 2 programming.
Hi, Claire.
2, 4, 6.
I'm not sure that's Claire.
No, it sounded like a bingo hall.
Well, while I line up the next one, there's a couple of people that were going to ask questions that haven't been able to join us. So if I ask you one of those, and
yeah, no problem.
So Rebecca Asker asked, does it ever go away, or is it always a case of needing to manage it? Maybe there's an interpretation there of what it is.
Yeah, I'm guessing she's talking about performance excitement, performance anxiety, and it never goes away. The simple answer, it never goes away. I'm just trying to find you. I can't find you. I did have you on this list, Rebecca. Oh, doesn't matter. Yeah, it never goes away. It changes its face. When it's at its worst, it's quite acute, and you're very aware of it, without doubt. And through coping mechanisms and strategies, it changes to something that is more akin to opening a birthday present rather than opening a parcel bomb. If I can do it that way, you get the same symptoms. Whether if it's a bomb in a train station, a policeman goes to it, his heart pumps like mad. He'll have sweaty palms, even though he's a professional. But he'll learn to control himself, and he'll have to get it. A bomb disposal guy comes in and deals with it. It's the same symptoms as some guy getting a lovely Christmas present. I'm guessing the same person, if he gets a Christmas present, his heart rate goes up, sweaty palms. Oh, I hope it's what I've asked for. Oh, it's fantastic. Same symptoms, but he learns to control. You learn to control that level of excitement or nerves, and they're the same thing. Nerves and excitement. It's very difficult. If you're watching somebody, it's hard to tell. Is he excited? Is he nervous? Does he know? Is he on that line between the two? And so it never goes away, the answer to that question, but we do learn to cope with it and accept it, and your body becomes used to it. And after a while, instead of your body going, oh, he's picked up his instrument, he's gone onto a stage in these strange clothes, this is a threatening situation, going to meltdown, your body goes, oh, he's going onto a stage, he's got these clothes on. That means it's fun time. So you still feel something slightly different to normal life, but you don't go into meltdown because your body accepts it as a non-threatening situation. And yes, to us, it's a perceived threat. It's not a real and actual threat. It's a perceived threat. So it's a psychological threat rather than, a man in a hockey mask with a chainsaw running through the door. It's not that. It's an audience. But your body and your mind sort of judge it as a threat. But over time, if you're doing these positive reinforcement strategies, then it doesn't see it as a threat. It sees it as a chance to go and show off. I hope that answers the question. Alex seems to have vanished. So he's back.
Yeah, I'm here. Yes, I think so. So we've got a couple of questioners lined up. So I think next we'll go to Andrew Porter.
Yeah, these euphonium players get everywhere. Andrew.
Hi, Roger. Good
You
evening.
will. You will.
Yeah, very well. Nice shirt, by the way.
Yeah. Well, I was supposed to be on a beach.
You know. Stay positive, Roger. Oh no, that's not the beach. There we go.
Yeah.
So my question, Roger, is how do you keep focus in a performance if something goes slightly unexpectedly? Do you worry about what others may think?
This is a great question, Andrew. So thanks for that. I used to do, yeah. Going back, I used to do. I think the very worst that it ever happened was going back into the early 80s, a long time ago. I was playing at Carlton, Maine at the time. I was principal there, and we were doing mass bands. The first time I'd done one with Black Dyke, and I thought, this is my chance. This is my chance to show them what I can do. Oh, they'll love it. I'd built it up in my mind. There's so much pressure, and I went out there and went to the front. It was my turn to do a solo, and I looked up. We were in Huddersfield Town Hall. To the box there was John Clough, there was Phil McCann, there was I think Kevin Crockford was there, and I thought they're going to have it. And I started to play, and band did their introduction. I came in, and it was about a semitone flat, and I sort of and I remember the conductor took a step back and just looked at me. And I was desperately trying to lip it back. I thought, my lip's gone. What's happened? And I was trying to, and I pulled my slide out. It was the days before Prestige on the trigger. I pulled my slide out on my tunic button, and it was all the way out. But he did manage to tell me. Kevin Wadsworth was the conductor, and I stuck it back in. But at that time, I'd used so much energy. It was like playing with two children hanging off my cheeks. It was just wrong. Nothing worked. I got to the end. And I could see the looks on the faces. I wasn't sure whether it was just like shock or disgust or what. So I didn't manage that one very well. But since that point, I again started thinking about it, and I had some great advice before I even started looking at psychology. Great advice from an old conductor when he witnessed something very similar from me playing, and he just said, "Live in the moment. You play every note like it's the last. And it's the most important. What's gone is gone, and most people won't have noticed." And he was absolutely right. You know, you split a note, and then if you dwell on it, then the next 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 notes could be rubbish because I missed that note. I missed that note. By the time you process that, you missed a big chunk of your playing. So my plan now is when I play is, yes, we're still doing in phrases, we're still got areas we're aiming for, but if I split something, I don't try to make the next bit even better, because that's going off piece, it's going off your plan. I just stick to the plan. And in the plan, yeah, I can knock one over, and someone could think, what was that? But if I stick to the rest of the plan and the rest of the piece is as I planned it, they'll forgive that. I know as an adjudicator, when I sit in a box listening to someone could play a solo or a band could play a piece, and they could knock a note over. And I've had it said to me by someone that the chairman of BBE knows. And it said to me, "How come you give them first prize? Their flugel player split this note." And I said, "Yeah, but every other note that flugel player played drew me into that performance and made me believe in it. And I know what it's like. Anybody can split a note. Anybody can knock something over or fluff it or miss it. But it's what you say in the full sentence, isn't it? And the full work. If you say something meaningful from start to finish, then if you in the middle, so what? So I would say it's focus again. It's making sure that you don't lose track. If you're staring at something, you're focused on that music, delivering that music. It's sticking to the plan. You get to the stage where you can be slightly flexible, and if you're really enjoying yourself, you can move away from plan A because you know that you've already practiced plan B and C, which could be a little bit faster, louder, higher or lower, finish on a little bit higher or whatever it is that you've planned into it. But you know that you've got your basic plan A, which is your fail safe. I can go from there to there without doing anything terribly wrong. And if something does go wrong, I stick to plan A. And I would say don't let anything put me off, because it can't put you off. Only you can put yourself off. It's like when people say, the trombone player knocked his mute over, so I split my next entry. wow, great. Did he hit you with the mute? Did he throw it across the band? No, he didn't. But so no, it doesn't matter. It could have, you know, it could just fall off his chair and fall off the stage. I'm doing this. If I split a note, so be it. That's life. I accept it and move on. I don't want to do it, and I'll learn from it next time. And I'll think, right, there's going to be a big ring around that note because that's twice I've done that, and it ain't going to be a third time. So you put the odds in your favor, but you really plan to go from there to there in the way that you've planned it and the way that you know that you enjoy. So hopefully someone else will benefit from that and enjoy it. But I don't think you should allow anything to dilute your level of performance. In psychological terms, they talk about locus of control. And if you allow someone else to take over that, so that's you second guessing what they think, or, you know, I split a note, do you think they're going to be thinking I can't play that high, or because it was a high note, or so-and-so's there listening to euphonium player, and ooh, I'm not doing the octave on that. Do you think, doesn't matter. As soon as you start on that game, you've given it to them. So you may as well let them play it. You stick to plan A by going, this is what I've practiced. Hope you enjoy it. Does that help in any way?
Yes, Roger, thanks very much. Thanks for your time as well.
No problem at all. Take care.
Cheers.
Do you have any more, Alex?
Great. And we've also got Nicholas Rowlands on the line.
Oh yes, I think I referred to. Did I? Nicholas, where are you, Nicholas? Hello there, Nicholas. Are you there?
You with us, Nicholas?
Can you hear me?
We can indeed, and see you.
Great. Hi there. Hi. I've been playing for about 40 years, Roger. It's only about 6 months ago, a band decided to offer me a solo seat. And that's literally in the last 6 months, I've started to become more aware of nerves on stage. And my question is, where does excitement end and anxiety begin?
I think they just cross over completely.
Yeah.
It's identifying. It's a great question, so thanks, Nick. But it's a good question in that, I mean, we briefly touched on this earlier. It's a label more than anything else. I think excitement turns to anxiety when we have self-doubt talking into our ears. So if you had no self-doubt and total confidence, and you were used to doing it well, that feeling of increased heart rate, etc., would just trigger your mind saying, oh, this is exciting. I mean, there's a survey, which I won't share because I don't know if everyone's over 18, but there's a survey that talks about different types of excitement and how you would label them. Would you call it a threatening situation or not? The same if someone gives you a present and, oh, what's this? Surprise party, you know, your heart rate goes up. Where it's the perception and it's the labeling that's the issue. I think if you're in a situation that you can see as being threatening, then you'd label it an anxious situation. But to any performer, really, it should be an exciting situation. Because I noticed that Pamela's put on there, Alan Mizzuti says, take every opportunity to play solos in front of others, as every practice needs to be a performance. Couldn't agree more. Every time you pick up your instrument and every time you think about practice, exercises, it should, everything, all roads lead to performance. Everything you do with your instrument and thinking about it is leading to performance. It's leading to sharing your skill, because you haven't got to lose sight of the fact that whoever you are, at whatever level you are, you've got a skill that you want to share with others. There's so many people out there that don't have this skill to be able to perform music. So it's no good being perfectionist and doing yourself down. I've sat with people that have listened to Wynton Marsalis and listened to a 7-year-old and preferred the 7-year-old because they don't know any different, and a lot of people don't. So if we label a situation as threatening and an anxious situation, that's how we'll feel. If we get this to the stage where, do you know what? If I make a mistake, that's life. It doesn't pay my bills. It won't mean that I have to sell the house. It's just that, you know, I'll perhaps not be as good as I think I am. If you start to think of it that way and go out and say, it's exciting going on stage. I get the chance to go, and all these people are going to sit and listen to me. Well, and to be honest, it's a privilege to be able to go out there and play for people. And if we can start labeling it like that, and then just dealing with the breathing, the focus, if we start to deal with that and keep that under control, you'll soon start labeling things as excitement rather than anxiety. I would always rather label it excitement, 100%, because it's easy for your brain to deal with excitement than it is to deal with something that's anxious. I know, I think it was I think it was Pamela who I've just spoken to her, that talked about the parts of the brain that deal with memory and deal with emotions attached to memory, etc. That's something that we can do, but we don't need to know about that unless you're looking into it in a deep way. And but what we do need to know is that it's easier for the brain to accept and act again on negative emotions, on fearful situations. It remembers them more and it labels them better because they're more extreme. So if we can start labeling things as excitement, it won't bring back that dread when you walk out, because it's like, people talk about, oh, I smell this and that. It takes me right back to a holiday I had in wherever. It can be the same when you walk out onto a contest stage. If you've had nothing but negative experiences, that feeling of, why am I doing this? Why didn't I take up tennis or fishing? It comes straight back. So we've got to relabel it as, do you know what? It's excitement, this. That's why my body's doing this. Yeah. You take it back to when you were a child. I don't know if you played as a child, but if you take it back to children, when they start playing, they can't wait to go and show off, even if it's 2 notes. They want to play for you because look what I can do. And if we keep hold of that and take that as adults, it's like you're going onto a stage and you're going, look what I can do. And at any level, I think that's brilliant. And we've just got to accept where we are and not put ridiculous expectations on ourselves.
But over the years, Roger, I've heard plenty of people say to me that they do their best performance on stage with the excitement of being on stage in front of an audience or in front of an adjudicator or whatever. What do you think of that?
It can happen, because for some people, self included, it's probably the only time that I've fully concentrated and focused. Because if you're not too challenged sometimes, and you just think, I'm way back, there's nothing making you focus. When I go on stage for a competition, I come over as relaxed, but I know that I've got a 15-minute job to do if I'm on a contest, and I can go and I'll be smiling and I'll try to relax everybody around me. And then, as soon as that sound goes down and you get a whistle, I'm on that music and I'm focused on that music and nothing else matters. You could set fire to my trousers. It's not going to bother me because I've got a job to do. I know what I've got to do. I've got all my breathing marked on there. It says gasp. It says breathe. It says don't mess up. It says all sorts of things, be positive on certain intervals and notes. There's all sorts of cues on there. And I'm in that. And I've got that. I've got peripheral feed from the conductor. I've got people next to me that they know when they're going to breathe. And I just make sure that their instruments up if I'm going to take a breath. And touch wood, I've always had very good people sat around me. It makes you look better. When you can't play stuff, you just let them do it. But it's a case of sticking to your plan and making sure that you know what you're doing, and trying to enjoy it. We go back to it every time. It's enjoyment and excitement's part of enjoyment. Anxiety has no place. Really, we've got to control it and relabel it as, I'm excited to go on stage, but I need to control my breathing and that adrenaline. Otherwise, it's going to chip away at my performance. Yeah.
Great. Thank you.
No problem. Cheers.
Cheers.
Okay. Do we have any more?
So the only other question that you lined up to ask, and I think Nigel Birch, who was going to ask the question, isn't able to join us today.
Right.
So, the question was, when you have had a negative experience, how do you build yourself up again for the next performance?
Well, speaking from experience, as that's probably we all can do, I think you've got to learn from it. It never goes. I've had, well, probably quite a few, like everyone has, but there are 2 that stick in my mind. One was the one I mentioned earlier when I caught my slide, and it was in some ways one of the reasons that we started with the triggers on the Prestige cornet. They'd been done before by, I think Con did them in the 20s on an instrument, and I was desperate to have one on. After I'd done that, I really wanted one on my cornet. I used to put elastic bands on it. I used to do all sorts. Even now, before I play, I do a solo, I always have a look at the slide, even though I know there's a trigger on it. So you learn from things and you don't make that same mistake again. The other negative experience I had was I'd be about 15 or 16 playing with Rockingham Band, believe it or not, the one that provided the recording under Derek Ashmore. We were playing in one of the band clubs, Dobcross or somewhere, and I was doing an air vary, and I stood up full of myself, 15. I was for the first few bars full of myself anyway, but I wasn't after that. The band didn't go at the same speed as me. They went at the speed they'd rehearsed and planned, and whether it was nerves or youth or whatever, I went off wild. I was away. I remember looking at Derek Ashmore, and he sort of smiled. He was always a gentleman. He smiled at me, and I'm getting all frustrated. I got to the end well before him, and I just sat down, arms folded, and I had a couple of people chuckle. And he carried on, and he got to the end and brought the band off. And he thanked the audience for persevering, even though the soloist decided on a different tempo. He played it very well, didn't he, ladies and gentlemen? It's a shame we'd not rehearsed at that speed, but it doesn't matter. We eventually caught him up, and I've never felt stupid in my life. So yeah, I learned from that experience. I learned not to be an idiot on stage, and to sometimes be a bit flexible. Even though you're the soloist, you still look very stupid if you're on your own. So the soloist isn't always right. Sometimes you have to go with the conductor or the band, because they can make you look very silly. So if you've had a negative experience, I think you have to look at it and find out what went wrong, what you could do about it, and how you can not repeat it, and see it as a part of learning. As you do with anything in life, you have to make mistakes to know how not to make mistakes. So yeah, it's a good thing. If you've never made a mistake in your life, you've never had an issue with it, that's great. But the day you do have one, you might not be equipped to deal with it.
Great. Well, you wouldn't believe how well, it's almost like we planned this. You've led it on to, and I'm not sure Claire is with us on the call. So her question was, how do you prepare yourself immediately before a solo performance?
It's different. I'll go for how you should prepare yourself, not just how I prepare myself. I think you should make sure that you don't change your routines much, whether it's a solo performance or a competition. Don't suddenly change. I've been with bands where before a contest, for instance, someone said, right, I'm going to bed, 9:30, I want a good night's sleep. So what time do you normally go to bed? Well, usually about midnight. Well, chances of them sleeping are slim to none. Been also in bands where you've got players that, right, I'm not having a drink tonight because we've got a contest in the morning. So do you normally not drink? Oh no, I'm an 8-pint tonight and 2 whiskies. Wow, so you probably not sleep. Or I'm going to go for a curry tonight, with the lads and have a couple of pints, and that'll make me sleep. And do you normally eat at night? No. So I'm boring at competitions. I like to go to bed early. I love trying to sleep. I don't sleep very well, as it happens, but I love trying. So I go to bed early, usually a cup of tea. I usually take with me a packet of chocolate digestives. Terrible. Sat there in bed, dipping my chocolate digestive and having a cup of tea. Because that's what I normally do. I would do if I was at home. And then once the draw's done, I go and rest. The same if I've got a solo performance, I try to rest. It's difficult sometimes. Sometimes I'm away and you've got a workshop in the day, you've got a half-hour break to grab something to eat, and you've got a solo performance. That's when I guess experience and just routine kicks in. But most of the time I would say try to rest, keep yourself hydrated, focus on the job, don't overthink it, think about the music, not about what can go wrong and what could go wrong. Just think about how you're going to enjoy doing what you've prepared and you've practiced. Go over it, make sure that you know what you're doing, and in your practice and your preparation for it, make sure you've done 10% quicker, 10% slower. You can play it a little bit higher than you need to do, you can play it a little bit lower than you need to do, and you can play it twice or at least 1.5 times, because with adrenaline and other things, it can sap you a little bit energy-wise. You can feel exhilarated to start with, and then sapped, and sort of adrenaline dump after. So make sure that you can do all these things, and the mental strength that gives you, knowing you can go on there and think, do you know what, even on a bad day, I can play this. On a bad day, I'll play it. On a good day, I'll perform it. And on a really good day, I'll perform it and people will go mad. So yeah, you just got to be mentally prepared that the piece is not a challenge. It's not the end of the line for you. On a good day, I can get through it, because that's no good. You just got to make sure that you're mentally prepared and you're physically prepared and you're rested. And then with a little bit of adrenaline, a bit of excitement, go and focus on enjoying it, doing the job you're doing, but enjoying it. I keep saying it, and it just sounds a bit, formulaic and a bit like a cliche, but you've got to enjoy it. I still, you'd think I'd got over it by now, but I still love going and playing concerts. And well, some more than others, obviously. If Jamie's there, he knows what I'm talking about. But generally speaking, I just like getting on stage and playing. Once you've done all that preparation, you've got to share it with other people. And anybody that's not done it yet, do it for other people. Just do it. Just get out there and play. Record yourself, send it to people, send it to us, send it to BBE, send it to me, send it to other people. We'll all listen to it. For you phone-in players out there, Steve Mead is sat at his computer for hours each day, getting his phone-in players to do multi-tracking and all sorts of stuff. Let him have a listen. He'll give you good feedback. Nobody's looking for money or anything. We're just looking to sort of help each other, because we're all in the same situation. So we share things. If somebody wants to get on and record something, we'll do a duet. I'll do a duet with you. Send me what we're doing. We'll record duets. Whatever. It's just making sure that it's fun. So preparation is key. You've got to do your work and then go and enjoy it and make sure you're rested and you're prepared and you're ready. You're ready to perform. And then don't play it, perform it. Alex, over to you.
Fab. Right. So I think that was all the questions we've prepared to ask. So unless you've got anything else you'd like to talk about, maybe we could just finish it up with some quick fire Q&As.
Yeah, no problem.
On the bottom of your screen. So if you open up that, and if anyone else has got any questions they'd like to quickly fire Roger's way before we finish up, now's your chance to pop them in the Q&A bit at the bottom, and Roger, you choose the questions that you'd like to.
Well, I'll just go through these that I've got up at the moment. I've got Francis Ashworth. He says, is shutting out the outside world and just performing for yourself in your own head a good strategy? I don't think that's a problem. It's however your coping mechanism. If you just don't want to see them, because you are performing for other people, but primarily and most importantly, you're performing for yourself. You've done this work and you want to play. You want to share it with other people, but it's no good playing just for other people. You're playing for yourself. If you enjoy it, there's a good chance that someone else will enjoy it. If you play and someone goes, oh, I really enjoyed that, and you were disappointed with it, you're still going to be disappointed. Even if someone comes and pats you on the back. We've all been in that situation where someone says, oh, loved your solo. And I've gone away and gone, well, yeah, bro, I split a couple tonight. And it was Roy Newsom once said to me, can I have a little word? So don't ever say that to someone again. I remember where I was. It's many years ago, and I was in Switzerland, and someone came up and said, oh, I enjoyed your playing tonight. And I said, oh, yeah, it wasn't right, good. I split that. And he says, don't ever do that, because they'll go away now and go, he was terrible tonight. He had, a really bad lip on. He split everything. And before they thought you were great. So playing in your own head for yourself, it's a strategy. And if it works for you and you can just be in your bedroom, we get people talking about, I'm at my safest and my most comfortable when I'm in my shower. So I imagine I'm in my shower when I'm on stage, and you see people playing with their eyes closed. Sometimes they're open because they're still visualizing the shower and they're practicing, or in the bedroom. That's great. Great, it works. James Cherry, Roger, would you say Steve Peters' theory of the chimp paradox is that one can be applied to any gig situation? The chimp? It is, but it's no different to anything else, the chimp paradox. It's no different to any other form of psychology and
you might
challenging.
need to explain to anyone that doesn't know what the chimp paradox is.
Oh, right. Okay.
I'm going to include myself in that.
All right. A guy called Steve Peters is, I think he's a psychiatrist as well as a psychologist, but I think primarily a psychiatrist that has a couple of books out now and has people traveling the length and breadth of the UK and the world, rolling out this psychological system that he talks about, the chimp paradox. But there's a little box inside you, mate. You've got chimp brain, etc. And you can, this little naughty chimps in there, and it's getting you to do lots of things that are not helpful. It's basically it's a modern take on unhelpful thoughts and replacing them with helpful thoughts and removing the unhelpful thoughts. Yes, James, simple answer, yes, I think it can be applied to any gig situation, but rather than fight the chimp, I would deal with the issues, which again Steve Peters would agree with as well. You deal with the issues, you get coping mechanisms in place, whether that's sticking it in a box and compartmentalizing things, or it's just saying, no, actually, I'm not going to put you in a box. I'm going to remove you completely because it's unrealistic that I'm going to split that because I've practiced it. That's just a stupid voice in my head and I don't need it. It's my voice in my head. So it's going, and I'm going to replace it rather than remove it. I'm going to replace it with a more realistic voice that says, I can do that. So we talked about the stop. There's a stop and no mechanism. It's again, American psychology. If you've got a negative voice, you basically like, no, this is the facts. This is the realistic outcome. If I'm a gambler, I've got this note 99% of the time. So why am I listening to this 1% saying you're going to miss it? You're going to miss that F at the end of that piece. The realistic outcome, if I was a gambler, is I'm going to get it because I've hit it 99% of the time. So you replace the negative, unhelpful thoughts with realistic, helpful thoughts. So it can help. There are lots of methods, and whatever method works, as long as it's based on solid foundations, like chimp paradox, then that's absolutely fine. CBT, chimp paradox, anything like that. It's all sound psychology. Yeah. I'm looking at anonymous attendee. Hi, I'm struggling with what I can only describe as a form of practice anxiety, where I'm aware of the dangers of practicing the wrong technique, bad habits. Yeah, I've seen this one actually. I've had bad experiences in the past developing the wrong technique. I'm afraid to practice as much as I'd like to. Any advice on not letting this hinder my practice goals? Yeah. Forget about what's right and wrong in practice and identify in your own mind, make a list, physical list of elements of playing. So range, flexibility, articulation, musicality, big list of all of these points, and then start finding exercises. You can do that with someone. You can send me a message through Alex. He'll give you my details. I can give you exercises to do on any one of these that will, if you do them right, and again, we can meet up on Zoom. You can do these exercises. You will start to practice and develop a good practice technique. It sounds like you want to practice, but you're not sure if you're going to be doing the right things. You've got to know what you're doing in practice. Otherwise, it's musical doodling or, ironing the crease in the wrong part of the shirt. It just makes a very creased shirt, but it doesn't make it nice. So it's finding the right parts that develop that. So articulation exercise, it doesn't necessarily mean doing loads of triple tonguing. It can mean doing things without your tongue. And so you're getting the right amount of air into your instrument in the right way. It can also mean that you're doing very little work with your tongue. Slurring exercises, it doesn't necessarily mean thinking about, people talk about lip flexibility. It doesn't mean your lips going for notes. It can be the tongue moving up and down in your mouth. So if you want some specific exercise, if you make a list and come back to me through Alex, so he'll give you my details. If you've already got them, that's also fine. You can come direct, it's not a problem. We'll get you some exercises that make you work in the right way, hopefully. Sheila Allen, hello Sheila. And what can you physically do to stop the shakes and when you're right in the middle of it's not going well? If you're right in the middle of it and it's not going well and you've got the shakes, I would say breathing is your only thing. Try to relax your muscles. Breathing will stop it. If you start to lock things out, it might not necessarily, because if you go from that, then it's going to exaggerate. It's going to send out all these signals, and your muscle, your adrenaline is going to be pumping through your muscles. But I would say breathing when you start, and then focus. Because what normally happens, if someone says, I was all right when I started, and then suddenly I got really nervous and started shaking, it's because they've become aware. It's almost self-aware. So you suddenly stood there, and it's like when you're talking to a group of people and all of a sudden you realize it's only your voice that you can hear as well. and it's like, oh, it all comes in on you. And sometimes people go, yeah, well, anyway, don't matter, I'm gone. And that can happen when you're playing. So that's when you just return to your music, or to even in your head, if the music's in your head, and focus on the job you've got to do rather than what you're doing. If that makes sense. It's not the playing, it's the delivery, it's the focus on the music, it's hand breathing, it's the mechanics of doing what you're doing. And then that'll become easier and easier, and you'll stop becoming too self-aware in a bad way. But you can get to the stage where you'll be self-aware, you'll be looking around in the audience and see who's there, and you're still enjoying it and you're playing it on autopilot. But for now, if you're getting the shakes in the middle, probably because you're feeling a bit self-aware, then things will go wrong. So you just got to take it back a step, strip it back, and start to just focus on the delivery. Joshua Clayton, do you feel a different type of pressure, nerves when recording versus playing live? Pressure to get the perfect take? Absolutely not. No, because it's digital nowadays, so they're not going to run out of tape. You can keep doing it wrong as many times as you want until they get bored. Now, I think we're always aiming for perfection, but sometimes acceptance is where you've got to be. No, live's in the moment, but there's always somebody recording it, and there's always somebody with a phone or with something trying to record you. If it goes wrong, whether it's live or on a CD, I have a few CDs out and there's wrong notes on all of them. Sometimes I only found out afterwards. Sometimes I just let them go because I'd had enough. But no, I personally don't feel a different sort of pressure. I think focus is slightly different, because when the light goes on, you want to get it right, just in case. I know, if you're playing with a band or an orchestra and the light goes on, they're not necessarily going to do a retake just for you. So sometimes when you're playing, it's a case of, I've got to give it everything, and you don't want to take a step back and play safe, but you don't want to play with wild abandon. You want to play with the level of commitment and effort that you've practiced already, and that way it's like on stage we talked about delivering your private performance in public. That's what you want to do on a recording. You want to give it what you know you want to do and what you're capable of doing. So I would say same sort of thing really. It's just a slight different switch. Am I wearing black trousers? I'm wearing blue trousers. Both trousers, and they're both nice, but they're just for a different job. So yeah, hope that helps. How can you perform on a beach? How can you perform like you play in private if you also get nervous in private because of the thought that you have to perform in public? Wow. That's a tough one. That really is a tough one. It's a great question, but really tough. At least in private, if you're feeling a little bit nervous because the thought of performing in public, then strip it back the other way, turn it around and think, right, I'm in private now. If this is how I'm feeling, how can I cope with this? And start to employ the breathing, the focus strategies, the coping mechanisms, and start to reinforce positive thinking in your mind. So if I was about to practice and it wasn't going well, or I thought, well, I'm starting to shake, and I think, right, I'll do a few breathing exercises to start with. And if I started to feel calm, and I said, all right, I can do this now in private. Now I'll get on with the focus and focusing on your music, not thinking about anything else, stopping external unhelpful thoughts. Every time we're doing anything, there's these unhelpful thoughts. You can be thinking, oh, look at the time, I should be having a drink, blah, blah, blah. Is the kettle boiled? Lots of thoughts, they're not helpful. You've got to try and limit these. So start in practice, limiting them, delivering as you see it, performing, making sure that your coping mechanisms are in place, and then take that with you to the stage. It will get easy if you do it like that, but you've got to employ these mechanisms in private to start with, not just on stage, definitely. Jamie Hood, what percentage of your daily practice would you or do you spend on mental practice? Not as much time as you should spend with a metronome, young man. Sorry about that for everyone else, but Jamie will know what I mean. I would say that there's a small percentage daily. I always think about how I should be breathing, where I should be breathing, what's going to help me, and going through all different scenarios. But I would say if I'm getting ready for any specific event, whether it's a competition or if it's a big concert, then I would work through what I need to do mentally to be able to survive that and enjoy it, because I don't just want to play. I want to go and perform and get something out of it myself. It's not just a case of, oh, there's my performance, I hope you enjoyed it. I want to go, here's my performance, I really enjoyed it, I hope you did too, as a byproduct almost. So I'm guessing that there's always a thought of the mental side of things, how you're going to get from A to B, as there is with most things in life. You've got to know how you're going to cope, how you're going to deliver, how you're going to act, and it's all about you and ownership of your performance. Always about the ownership and retaining ownership and how you're going to show yourself in your best light. Does that make sense? Hope that's all right, Jamie. Back to your metronome.
Great. Well, that looks like it's all the questions we've got time
Very
for
good.
today. So I'll just do a quick wrap up now,
Yeah.
and then in a minute I think we'll be opening up the BBE pub for those on the webinar who want to stay and have a drink. Very nice. I think the first question is going to be what's the X-rated questionnaire that you've alluded to coming up on the questions. So I'm just going to share my screen and finish up there. So obviously I'd like to say a big thank you to Roger. I think that's been a really interesting session. I think there'll be many people with something to go away and think about. So thank you very much, Roger. And if we'd love to hear what you've got to say about these sessions, if you could fill out our feedback form, and I'm just going to share the link for you now, and those on Facebook, I think the link will be shared by one of my colleagues now on the stream on the Brass Band England page. So please do go ahead and fill those out. We've had lots of really positive responses, but if there's something that you think we could do better, we'd love to hear what that is. So next week, as I said earlier, we've got another webinar with Philip Harper, and this time we're talking about arranging for brass band. So if you've got any questions from tomorrow, you'll be able to sign up to the webinar and get your questions through to Phil, and we'll be looking over all those questions. At this point, I forgot to say earlier, thank you very much to everybody that has sent questions in today. Roger and I had a lot of fun reading through them, and sorry we haven't managed to answer all of them, but some of them were a little bit off topic, and some of them were really good as well. So if we haven't managed to get them today, sorry about that, and thank you for your questions. So next week Philip Harper is back again, so please do get involved with other things that Brass Bands England are up to. So you can go on our website and create an account. So if your band is a member, you can then link that account to your band's membership. But if they're not, you can have an account anyway, and there's a few bits and pieces that you can get for free. Join our Facebook group. Just search for Brass Bands England on Facebook. And finally, a reminder about the contesting survey that we're running at the moment. And again, I'm going to share the link to take you through to the contesting survey page on our website on the chat now as well. And that takes you to our website, which has links to the first 3 parts, which are live at the moment. And then finally, please support our crisis work. We've got a crowdfunder running at the moment, which is a crowdfunder which has raised £10,000 to help support bands that are struggling at the moment. Applications for that are open, so if you've got any questions about applying for that, please email info@bbe.org.uk to find out how to apply for that. But if you've enjoyed tonight's session, please do consider donating to the crowdfunder. Even £1 will go towards the total. So please do keep supporting that. And it's rising every week. I think we're on £2,070 at the moment. So thank you to everyone that has donated so far. So with that, I think we should all give one more hands up round of applause for Roger this evening. And in a moment, we'll say goodbye to everybody on Facebook. Although I can see Kenny has appeared briefly, who might want to just say a last few words.
Yeah, Kenny, I'm the CEO of Brass Bands England, and I just again like to add Parky's thanks to Roger for a fantastic session tonight. Really, really interesting, and as I said, some great questions as well to stimulate a very, very good discussion. So thanks to everybody. Also, thanks to our guys behind the scene, our ladies behind the scene, as Sarah was looking after the Facebook feed, and Rosie was keeping an eye on all the questions and everything coming in. And of course, to our principal funders, Arts Council of England, without whom none of this would be happening at all. So they have been absolutely fantastic, especially during the recent crisis. So, and Parky, over to you, but thanks again. Great job, mate. And let's get the barrel.
Great. Well, thank you very much for joining us, everybody. And if you're watching on Facebook, please do join us next week. And if you'd like to come and join us in the pub, make sure you sign up to the webinars. We have a really great discussion every week. So thank you very much, and we'll say goodbye to everybody on Facebook. Bye now.
Bye now.